On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress of the United States of America unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence, announcing the colony's separation from Great Britain. The call for freedom was sounded at Independence Hall with the Liberty Bell. Newly free Americans celebrated as word spread throughout the newly declared independent states. But the fight for independence was far from over.
Welcome to Check This Out, podcast for kids.
And their grown-ups, where we explore people, places, ponderings, and past moments from history that shape the world around us. My name is Amy Contreras.
And I'm Cece.
This week, on July 4th, 2025, the United States is celebrating the 249th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's a big week for the United States.
Woo! History.
Woo history indeed, Cece. It's fun that the 4th of July is this week because we're in the middle of our series on past moments from history. And what better past moment to talk about than the day the United States is celebrating this week?
That's right!
Talking about past moments has been so interesting. We started this series with an episode on D-Day, and then we started talking about the start of World War I and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and we talked about Juneteenth.
What an amazing story!
Truly, Cece, there are so many amazing stories and past moments from history. That is part of what makes this podcast so fun. And today we're going to talk about a past moment that played a critical role in the birth of our nation.
I can't wait!
Then let's get right into it. The 4th of July is a key moment in the story of the American Revolutionary War and the United States' fight for independence from England. First, I want to see what you already know about the 4th of July and the Declaration of Independence. You know what that means.
It's time for a lightning round.
You know it. Here we go.
Question number 1.
Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? A. Benjamin Franklin. B. George Washington. C. Thomas Jefferson.
Mama, can I guess? I pick C. Thomas Jefferson.
You're right, Cece. Thomas Jefferson drafted the original Declaration of Independence, but it did go through a review by a committee in Congress. This committee included John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, along with a few other members of Congress. The committee made 86 revisions to Jefferson's original draft.
Question number 2.
Who ruled England when the colonies established their independence?
I got nothing.
Well, all my Hamilton fans might know this, but King George III ruled England when the colonies signed the Declaration of Independence.
Question number 4.
Which city hosted the first official Independence Day celebration on July 4th of 1777? A. Philadelphia. B. Boston. C. Washington, D.C.
The answer is A. More on that later. Question number 5.
What saying associated with the British taxing of the colonies is often referred to as a pillar in the American Revolution? A. Give me liberty or give me death. B. No taxation without representation. C. The British are coming.
I think it's B.
You're right, Cece. B. No taxation without representation was the right answer. Last question.
True or false?
July 4th was the start of the American Revolutionary War.
The answer is false.
You're right, Cece. The American Revolutionary War actually began on April 19th of 1775.
Great work, everyone.
I actually think our last lightning round question is a great place to start. As we just learned, April 19th, 1775 is the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and that took place in Massachusetts. This was the first battle of the American Revolution.
What happened?
The British marched into Lexington and Concord with the goal of stopping rebellion by seizing weapons from the colonists. Instead, their actions sparked the first battle of the Revolutionary War. The colonists had created an intricate alarm system, and when the British attacked, they summoned the local militia. The colonists won this first battle, but it was a long way to go for independence.
How incredible. That's amazing.
The Revolutionary War would go on for years. Some view the British surrender of Yorktown as the end of the war in October of 1781. But the peace treaty for the American Revolutionary War wasn't signed between the British and the United States until September 3rd of 1783. This is also known as the Treaty of Paris. That is the official end of the Revolutionary War. So when we talk about the past moment from history, the 4th of July of 1776, you can see it was just at the beginning of the fight for independence.
But that's not all.
Interestingly, when July 4th, 1776 happened, Americans were getting good news and bad news at the same time. While Americans were celebrating the news of the Declaration of Independence, British troops were also arriving in New York. This was all happening at the same time that the Liberty Bell was ringing out in Philadelphia.
Things were not easy.
No, they weren't. On July 9th of 1776, General George Washington ordered the Declaration of Independence to be read aloud to his men who were in New York City as they were preparing to fight the British. He hoped that by hearing it, they would find new meaning in the war for independence.
I had no idea.
That wasn't the only time the Declaration of Independence was read out loud. Remember, in 1776, people didn't have phones or internet, only mail that was delivered by horses and word of mouth. On July 8th of 1776, the first public readings of the Declaration of Independence were held in Philadelphia's Independence Square to the ringing of bells and band music.
Wow, I love it.
56 members of the Second Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence after voting it to life on July 2nd, 1776. Here are some other fun facts about the 4th of July.
Fact number 1.
The colonies officially voted to declare independence on July 2nd of 1776, but the document of the Declaration of Independence was formalized on July 4th. Some members of Congress signed on the 4th, but most of them didn't even sign it until August of 1776. Bonus fact about this, John Adams thought that July 2nd would be the day that future generations would celebrate, not July 4th.
Fact number 2.
The first organized Independence Day celebrations were held in Philadelphia and in Boston in 1777. In Philadelphia, the festivities included fireworks and bell ringing. In honor of the 13 colonies, a fleet of ships fired 13 cannon salutes, and a cannon was fired from each of the 13 galleries.
Fact number 3.
Did you know that 3 U.S. presidents have died on Independence Day?
What?
Yup. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and James Monroe all died on the 4th of July. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson actually died within hours of one another on July 4th, 1826, which happened to be the 50th anniversary of the Declaration's passage. James Monroe also died on July 4th, but he outlived Jefferson and Adams by 5 years. He passed away on July 4th of 1831. On the opposite end of the spectrum, not dying, but being born, President Calvin Coolidge was born on July 4th of 1872.
Here's a fun fact.
According to the American Pyrotechnics Association, Americans spent $2.3 billion on fireworks in 2023.
What was your favorite fact?
In 1870, the U.S. Congress made Independence Day an unpaid holiday for federal workers, and in 1938, it became a paid federal holiday. Today, millions of people celebrate with barbecues, parades, fireworks, and wearing American flag colors.
I've seen it.
Listeners, how do you and your family celebrate the 4th of July? Do you do anything fun? Do you have any 4th of July traditions? Write in and tell us about them. We'd love to hear from you. Now, before we wrap up the episode, we want to leave you with just a couple more fun facts about Independence Day and the Declaration of Independence.
Check this out.
Mary Catherine Goddard, who was commissioned by Congress to print copies of the important document of the Declaration of Independence, added her name below the original signers' names. Though it's not clear why she included her name, Goddard was a well-known patriot and one of the first women publishers and postmasters in our young country. Here's another thing to know. The Declaration of Independence was stored at Fort Knox during World War II.
That is cool.
I like this fact because we happen to eat hot dogs in our family on the 4th of July. According to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, did you even know that was a thing? 150 million hot dogs are eaten on the 4th of July.
That's a big number.
Here's the last one. The first 4th of July celebration that was held at the White House was held on July 4th of 1801, and that was when Thomas Jefferson was president.
I had no idea.
This past moment from history is something that's still celebrated today, and it means a lot to different people for different reasons. It can be a time to honor veterans, our nation's history, or just take the time to be with loved ones. It didn't feel right to write a poem for today's episode because there are so many songs and poems that celebrate this particular past moment from history. So instead, we're going to read you a quote from John Adams about Independence Day. Remember how earlier I said he thought July 2nd would be what was ultimately celebrated as Independence Day. But listen anyways.
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epocha in the history of America. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, this time forward forevermore.
What a great quote!
Thanks for listening with us as we talked about past moment from history, the 4th of July, 1776. At Check This Out, we know it can be hard to know if information you find online is accurate. Here at Check This Out, we use verified sources to build the stories you hear about.
Our sources are
the National Park Service, the Library of Congress, Encyclopedia Britannica, PBS, American Battlefield Trust, History.com, and the Massachusetts Historical Society.
Thanks for listening. See you next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.